What is going on, guys? It's the Man Dragon. Super Saturday is coming up, which means, of course, we need to do our preview video. It's going to be smashing them out today. I think all 6 teams are getting announced today. Starting out then with Scotland versus Italy. Going to be an exciting game. Scotland a little bit wounded from so many injuries coming in against a very well-performing Ireland team. And Italy coming off of the back of a loss to Wales in quite an underwhelming performance considering how well they've done through the rest of the tournament. So I'm really looking forward to this one. So as we do in these preview videos, of course, we'll be checking out the official teams that have been announced for both sides, going through some good picks, some bad picks, some changes, maybe some team tactics that we think will be brought into the game, and finally giving a score prediction. If you enjoy this style of video, make sure to drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop down in the comment section what you think of these teams that have been named for both sides. So starting out then with Scotland. Scotland, the home team, went up against Ireland last week and didn't manage to quite get a grip of that game. Even when chances did arise, Ireland had some big injuries, especially in that hooker department. Lost both of their hookers. Cian Healy had to step in at hooker. Josh van der Fleer had to step in at line-out. And Scotland still couldn't quite take the advantage of those big situations. They had some big injuries themselves, which has sort of led into what some of the changes are for this team going against Italy. So starting out in this front row, Pierre Schoeman, George Turner, Xander Fagerson. We've seen it across the tournament, and the 3 of them are performing very well. Xander Fagerson was getting some big shots in last week on in terms of defence against some of the Irish attackers. In the lock department, Sam Skinner now coming in alongside Johnny Gray. Of course, Richie Gray picked up a bit of a knock in that game as well. So Sam Skinner coming in. Grant Gilchrist still out with his red card. So the lock department now being tested in terms of that depth for Scotland. They didn't manage to get on too well in terms of the line out. Right up until that sort of 70th minute, they didn't quite gauge that Van der Fleer was throwing in and maybe didn't quite have as much of a handle on it as they expected. They might have given him a bit too much credit. They weren't just loading that forwards. They eventually got sort of on top of it and said, oh, we need to put someone right at the front of that line out and just give Josh van der Fleer a really hard time. Took a little bit too long for them to sort of gauge what was happening there. But the Scotland line out can work well. There's 2 good locks here. I'm still feeling confident in that team going up against Italy. In the back row, Jamie Ritchie retained in the blindside flanker. Hamish Watson coming in open side flanker, and Jack Dempsey taking 8. So Matt Fagerson on the bench. A couple of people have been speaking about this already. I've sort of seen people would be sort of starting Fagerson on this game. Hamish Watson had a lot of game time across the Six Nations. I can only think of that one game where then there was a red card and he had to get subbed off for it. So I'm looking forward to see Hamish Watson back in this team. Jamie Ritchie and Hamish Watson both big players over the ball in terms of the breakdown, potential to get some penalties. Maybe Scotland will be looking for a good game against the Italy team, taking the 3 points, getting jackal penalties. We sort of saw against the Wales team how much Italy were making these little mistakes, potentially not supporting players running out of position or not getting into position quickly enough. So the breakdown in that game was very important. Having 2 big breakdown players like this on the team, I think could actually be quite a good move. In terms of the halfback partnership then, Ben White going in alongside Blair Kinghorn. Now, Finn Russell also out with his injury alongside of Stuart Hogg. Big crucial players being lost in this Scotland team. Finn Russell has performed so well throughout this tournament. He's been a real sort of pivot point in that team that everyone's sort of working around to see what he's going to do, the way he's distributing, the way he's picking passes and stuff. Blair Kinghorn coming in at 10 is an interesting decision. He has played 10 for Scotland before. He did sort of do it, was it over the autumn series or the summer series? And he sort of grew into it a little bit. I wasn't that confident in it. He sort of grew on me a bit in that 10 shirt. Now, one thing for me here, Blair Kinghorn did come on in one game when Stuart Hogg took a knock to the head and played at fullback and had a good game. For me here, I would be putting Blair Kinghorn on at fullback, and I'd be giving Ben Healy a crack at the fly half position. Now I know, he's not got the great deal of caps such as like Blair Kinghorn in this Scotland team, but I think Blair Kinghorn was so impressive in that fullback shirt. Ben Healy's no doubt going to come on at some point in this game. I've been looking forward to seeing him in an international jersey. I'd start him off, let him get a feel for the game straight from the off. Someone like Blair Kinghorn's experience in that backfield as well. If it begins to go a bit wrong up front and Italy trying to kick over the top, at least he could clear it up as we've seen him do already. I think I might have moved him to that fullback position, but we'll have to see how he gets on. In the centre partnership, we've seen it all tournament long. Tui Pilotu alongside a Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones again getting over for a try. The boy just can't stop scoring. Just absolutely fantastic in terms of his running lines. Just seems to always hit the gap. Absolutely fantastic try for him against Ireland. Tui Pilotu also the vice-captain. I can't think if he was vice-captain last week. Scotland do like their two vice-captains. They've always sort of done that alongside of their main captain. Tui Pilotu is vice-captain is an interesting choice because they seem to also be taking Tui Pilotu off about 65 minutes. Cameron Redpath is on the bench, who I would also personally associate with like an inside centre. So I'm interested to have a vice-captain that you're going to take off at some point, but we'll have to see how that gets on. But we know how well this centre partnership works, especially in that first half. They just seem to find the room before the defence has quite got used to the speed of the game and how it's playing. And then finally in that back three, we have Duan van der Merwe on that left wing, Kyle Steyn and Ollie Smith coming in on that fullback position. Now, like I said, I sort of would have put Blair Kinghorn back. Ollie Smith is still a good fullback. I don't know who people would sort of rate better in terms of fullback. I would lean more towards Blair Kinghorn, but then I'm sure if you're a big Scotland fan, you'd probably rather have Stuart Hogg there nonetheless. But looking forward to see how Ollie Smith gets on. Italy against Wales were kicking the ball away. They were kicking it downfield, but it came a little bit more due to pressure on them and running out of options and having to kick it away, as opposed to maybe sort of tactical, trying to kick it away and have someone chase down the ball. So as long as Scotland keep up the pressure on the defensive, I can see Ollie Smith getting his hands on the ball quite a lot through this game. In terms of the replacements then, Ewan Ashman, Rory Sutherland and W.P. Nell will be coming on in that second half for some big scrummaging work alongside the replacement forward, Scott Cummings and Matt Fagerson, who I'm expecting him to sort of do what we saw with Jack Conan for the Ireland team. He's going to come on from that bench, make a big impact. I'm sure we'll probably see him at some point out on the wing, charging with the ball in hand anyway. He's not meant to be there, but it's something we've seen recently. A lot of teams moving their 8 out onto the wing and just making nice little runs. I can imagine Matt Vegas will be looking forward to get on in that second half. And then finally in the backs, Ali Price, Ben Healy and Cameron Redpath. Now, I've already seen a couple of comments, people saying they really kind of wish George Horne was on this bench. I don't think Ali Price has done too bad since he's been in the Scotland team. There was a lot of talk around before about whether he was in form, whether he should even be in the Scotland team. I think he's been coming on, been playing pretty well. So as much as I would have liked to have seen George Horne, actually, mainly just for the speed that he can get the ball out and run with it. Maybe they're just thinking in case the game is getting away from them, higher caps, higher experience, someone like Ali Price just to cool down everyone and put them back on a position. But a name I'm really looking forward to see back on this pitch as well, Cameron Redpath. How long has it been since we've seen his name on a team sheet? Feels like a long, long time. So really looking forward to see him back in a Scotland jersey. Then moving on to Italy, who last week went on to play Wales. I don't think they were technically favourites, but to a lot of people, they were favourites going into that game. I was really expecting Italy to bring a massive performance in that. Watching the build-up to that game, there was a lot of talk around whether Italy might actually let the pressure of feeling like they're going to win get a hold of them, and it really kind of felt like that. It felt like there were so many more mistakes in that game comparative to other games we've had. Playing teams like France and Ireland, maybe they weren't expecting to win, so they've got nothing to lose, so they just played better. I feel some of the pressure got to Italy, unfortunately. Last week there was a few too many mistakes, players out of position. Don't get me wrong, Wales played better than we've probably seen them in the rest of the tournament leading into that game. But Italy just getting those few mistakes wrong doesn't help when the referee's not necessarily going your way as well. There was certainly the Owen Williams push in the back with Brex, was it? I thought that could have been a yellow card from a Welshman standpoint here. So Italy will feel like they've got some stuff to improve. This is a good final game for them to just try and consolidate what has been a good tournament. And they've just not come away with the results they would want from this one. So starting off in this front row then, Fischetti, Nicotera and Riccioni coming back in on that tight head prop. So another switch up here. They've been going between Ferrari and Riccioni. Riccioni getting the start this week. Ferrari's actually not on the bench this week. I can't actually remember straight off the top of my head now if he had an injury, of course. I don't really look at these teams before I start this video. It's more of a reaction to them. But they have been working hard, the Italian props. Fischetti's actually had a really good tournament. I think he's been sort of one of the more underrated players. He's actually been playing extremely well, but he sort of flies under the radar a bit, doing the hard graft where not a lot of people are necessarily seeing him. In the lock department, Yakizi gets a start alongside of Federico Ruzza. So Canone Kanone being moved to the bench, maybe not impressing people as much as you want him to. Now, Yakizi, unfortunately, we haven't seen a great amount of game time from, so he's going to be one of those players I'll be able to keep a bit more of an eye out for him in this game, with him actually getting a start. He'll get to play a big portion of it, but Federico Ruzza there, a fantastic lock to play alongside. In the back row, Negri, Lamaro, and Kanone. If you're not used to this setup by now, this is the Italian back row as it stood through a lot of the championship. Negri still playing well, even just every single game. Got himself over for a try last week against Wales as well. I think he's doing extremely well. Lamaro last week, you could see him getting a bit aggravated. He's a very calm captain. I really like his sort of decorum about him as a person. Really tends to just sort of talk one-on-one with the referee, wants to understand what's going on. Last week, you could see him getting a bit agitated. The referee's calls not going his way. And a couple of them, I actually agreed with him. With him from a Wales standpoint, I was thinking, yeah, I see why you get annoyed by these. So hopefully in this one, just keeps a cool head as well, gets a nicer communication along with the referee, and hopefully the referee gives some calls going towards Italy when they certainly sort of deserved a couple of them. In the halfback partnership then, Fusco gets his start alongside of Paolo Garbisi. Now, Alessandro Fusco, we've not seen a lot from. Stephen Varney has been absolutely crushing it in terms of the scrum half shit. Now, one thing I've been saying through these preview videos is how much I really feel like Stephen Varney can sometimes be too ahead of the Italian team, and I think that sort of showed itself again last week against Wales. Him and Paolo Garbisi, the speed they were getting the ball out the ruck and just shipping on. There were so many times in that game, ruck was being completed, ball is picked up, getting ready for the pass before they look up and see the forwards aren't even in position before they get the ball. They're passing the ball out. Sometimes they had 4 options, but 2 of the players are ahead of the passer. So suddenly it's one option and it's right out on the wing, putting themselves under pressure. Sometimes they're so eager to get on with the game that they're actually catching out their own forwards. They're a young team. Fitness is not necessarily the worst thing for them, but you've got to be aware of the rest of your team and where they are. It's no point being the fastest player on your team if no one else is there to support you along the way. So hopefully Alessandro Fusco will slow it down just a little bit, just allow Italy to get in position and go through some phases, keeping the hands on the ball, no forward passes, no knock-ons, none of that nonsense. So looking forward to see him getting a start here. In the centre partnership then, Menoncello alongside of Brex. Brex last week, unfortunately, having just a couple of things going wrong for him. Again, I thought he was having a good game. Defensive reads, absolutely fantastic. Got himself over for a try that got disallowed as well. And Menoncello is also actually doing quite well in that inside centre. I really thought they'd be missing someone like Zanon from that inside centre, but Menoncello has actually been filling in quite well there. Now, a new name for me in the back 3, Simone Gessi, or Jesse, going to have a guess at the pronunciation. Hopefully I've sort of got it correct there. Don't know a lot about him. Looking forward to seeing him take a start to this field. Pierre Bruno moves to the right-hand wing. And Tommaso Alan, we'll talk about Pierre Bruno for a second. Not his game last week at all. Not very well positioned in that backfield. We saw that bouncing ball get over for the Rio Dyer try. Got himself a yellow card for a very silly action, leading the elbow. Could have been a red card as well. You can't be doing stuff like that. Not a great game from Pierre Bruno. Not sure of just getting riled up in that one and not really going his way. But Tommaso Alan, having a great game. Really enjoying him at fullback. I was a bit nervous about him starting at fullback last week, but really, really impressed me. Did extremely well, even in the Fantasy League as well. He was like the second highest scoring fly half in the Fantasy League from how well he was playing the game, running with the ball in hand, giving try assist passes and stuff. Thought he had a really good game in that fullback search. So still nice to see him there with, of course, Capuozzo still out. In the replacements then, Manfredi goes in alongside of Zani and Ceccarelli. So a couple of new names here for me along the way. Manfredi, don't know a lot about him. Any of the Italian subscribers on the channel, feel free to drop down. What should we be looking out for? Who of these new players coming into the side should be the ones to watch? Because I really enjoy getting to learn about some more teams, a bit more outside of my circle of knowledge. Seems like Italy has been really fun to learn a lot about some of these players. The rest of the replacement forwards then, Canone, Pettinelli and Zuliani. They've gone for the 6-2. I think this is the right call. Now, while Scotland are pretty good at loading up on the forwards and going through phases through the forwards, the backs have been making big ground. We've seen Hugh Jones and stuff carving through lines. Having players that are going to need to tackle all day long, I think the 6-2 is going to be a good move here. I also think Scotland will want to end this game on a real high note. Potential bonus point tries to come in here. Can come through driving mauls and stuff. Scotland on the attacking driving maul have actually been really good. So I think going for the 6-2 here just to give you a bit of longevity into the game and not let them get over the line. People like George Turner, what he can do at the back of the maul as well. So I think this is actually the right move for Italy in this one. And then finally in the replacement backs, Alessandro Garbisi, brother of other Garbisi. I still haven't yet to see a lot of game time from him. And finally, Morisi So one of the big issues for me here will just be about the injury. Of course, the 6-2 split, there's always the worry. We've seen a lot of injuries over round 4. Hopefully, Italy can survive without getting too many injuries, because an injury pretty much anywhere in that backfield is going to cause quite a lot of movement. If you lose someone like Tommaso Allan, I'm not sure who fills in at fullback. I imagine someone like Pierre Bruno has a bit of experience at fullback. If you lose a winger, maybe you're having to chuck Mauricio on at centre and Menoncello move out to the wing. If you lose Paolo Garbisi, Tommaso Allan has to move to fullback, Bruno has to move out, someone has to move to the wing, someone has to move into the... There's a lot of movement. It can be done, and it's nice to see that Italy are finally at a stage where actually positions are covered by just having 2 backs on the bench. But injury worries, and a Scotland team that'll be fired up for this one, trying to make the most of it. So, thinking about a score prediction then, what do we think for this one? I think Scotland have lost a couple of really key players in terms of Finn Russell and Stuart Hogg. This goes from a game where I think Scotland would be expected to win to maybe a bit more of an opportunity for this to go either way. I'm still leaning towards Scotland, though. I think they've been playing well throughout this tournament, and I think a couple of these new boys will be looking to try and show off, especially with having like a new fullback on, time to get some big counter runs and stuff in. I'm going to lean towards Scotland, and I'm going to say a Scotland win by 8. That's going to be my prediction, guys. But make sure you do drop down in the comment section your thoughts on these teams and your own prediction for this final scoreline. And of course, make sure you are getting your picks on Super Brew for the final round. It is really heating up in the Fantasy League. A couple of us are getting extremely close to each other now. There is the chance I could get first in the Fantasy League. I feel like there might be a bit of a gap between me and first, but I might be able to do it. But make sure you are locking in your teams before Super Saturday. I am planning on doing a review video for the Ireland-England game, depending on whichever way it goes, because then we'll actually know who the winner is of the Six Nations. And of course, we will be doing the World Rankings video on Monday, along with the Super Brew results, and getting to crown the champion of both the Predictor and the Fantasy League. I hope you've all enjoyed this one today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.